So I found out this is not actually the original song, thanks to YouTube, which apparently YouTube is right over everybody else. All right, so we're doing revenge strikes. I've been following this story for the last few weeks, definitely. I'll say that it's probably going to get us into some trouble here. When I say us, I mean the U.S., whether I'm involved or not. My taxes are going to this shit. Same thing for anybody else that's in the U.S. that's sitting here watching this stuff. Our taxes go to this, whether we like it or not. I'm sure we would prefer that it go to schools or maybe to pay for kids' lunches, but it seems like our politicians are evil assholes and they don't want the money to go there either. Sounds like a problem. Vote for the guy that doesn't want war. You don't have an option? Oh, well, what can you do? I don't know. I do know, but let's see what happened here. Okay, I think I need to crank some volume up here. Put this at a certain percent. We'll just say 300. Oh, God. Okay, that's good enough. Yeah. So these, hold on, I skipped ahead too far. Here we go.
Russia called this meeting under the false pretense that the United States has no ground to respond to attacks that have killed U.S. personnel.
Brother, I know you're reading from a paper, and I know you know better than that, but the idea that there was no grounds to respond to the attacks is because these attacks are already responses to other attacks that we've already done. It's not like it started right when 3 people died. It started way before that. So you downplaying, of course, that's good. I need to start streaming. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Yeah, the idea that it started on the day that our 3 U.S. soldiers died is a completely unfounded. And it's like, you always want to play the victim, right? That way you can do whatever you want. But that is definitely not the case. That's why this session was called. This session was not talked about in U.S. media at all. This is never talked about. What happens in the UN is never talked about in U.S. media.
Repeating, therefore, that the actions U.S. forces took on February 2 are necessary and proportionate, consistent with international law, and in exercise of the United States' inherent right to self-defense.
I would like to reiterate that if Iran faces any threat, attack, or aggression affecting its security, national interest, or people, it will not hesitate to exercise its inherent rights under international law and the UN Charter to respond firmly.
Господа председатели, очевидно, что американские авиаудары специально рассчитаны на дальнейшее разжигание конфликта. Их целями стали объекты и
The United States has indicated that relevant military operations will continue. China expresses its serious concern over this situation. We oppose any acts that violate the UN Charter and infringe upon the territorial sovereignty and security of other countries.
Now, you could say, what do you expect them to do, Johnny? You want them to just sit back and not blow up the entire world? Do you want them to not drop bombs, that cost $3 million each or $4.6 million each? Do you want them to not fly B-1 bombers across the entire planet and drop 84 or 85 munitions on these guys? And spend all the money while you're at it. I mean, why not? We already are, but none of that money is coming back into the U.S. There's obviously the argument that, that money goes back into United States military, and bombs cost $3 million each. Some bombs do cost $3 million each. Yes. What was it? I can pull that up, but I'm just going to continue on. Yeah, bombs are expensive. But Yeah, like what do you want us to do? Not fight back? Okay, maybe we've already been fighting this entire time, like I've been talking about in the past streams, and I think we're overdoing it a little bit, and we're using the excuse of being the victim always. But yeah, does it help anything or does it increase tensions? It definitely increases tensions, especially if we're being called out by Russia and China. At the same time, you know, we always want to say that, oh, well, you know, these guys are our enemy and they just want to see the United States fail. It's like, bro, we're doing it to ourselves. We're like literally punching ourselves in the face the entire time. And, well, really, I wouldn't even say ourselves. It's the U.S. military that's constantly punching the working class and the citizens of the United States in the face constantly. And that is the damage that is being done. But yeah, these rockets that fly out, hold on, actually, you asked a very good question. Those rockets that fly out, they cost a pretty penny. Hold on. Missile. Did I spell it with 3 S's? You dumbass. Where are they at? I was just looking at them the other day. Man, I forgot what it's called. God, what's it called? I don't know. I'll have to look it up some other time. I'll send it to you. All right, so that was the UN ambassador for Iran. That was also the UN ambassador for Russia and China that they were talking to.
The United States.
Lester Holt from NBC News actually got an interview with the UN ambassador from Iran. So I did want to watch that. It seems like this is a much longer interview, but they chopped it down to literally 2 minutes. I think this is, okay, 3 minutes. And then there's this other second part that's 1 minute. I guarantee you this interview is much longer, and I wanted to watch it, though. Maybe I can find the video.
The war is growing?
Yeah.
I spoke to Ambassador.
He said, so the war is growing. Yeah, you think? I mean, the more bombs you drop, the more the war is going to grow.
Amir Saeed Iravani just days after 3 U.S. soldiers died in a drone attack. And with ongoing strikes on commercial ships in the Red Sea, the U.S. blaming Iranian-backed militias.
Much of the conversation centers on the level of control or influence that the Iranian government has over these groups, the Houthis and other groups. If you pick up the phone, can you end the attacks?
No, may I say that it is not the same case. The relation between Iran and the resistance group in this region.
So that's one thing that they keep saying, right, is these are Iranian-backed militias, making it seem like Iran is in full control of the militias, and that they can tell them whatever to do at any point and how to do it. Not necessarily the actual facts, but oh yeah, here it is. Forget the Tomahawk missile. But yeah, not the actual facts. I'll let him explain.
Maybe
further.
compare it with the NATO territory.
So you're calling this like a defense pact?
Yeah, defense pact between the resistance group and Iran.
Exactly. They are different groups. They can do whatever the fuck they want at any point in time. What Iran says may or may not have an effect. When Hamas did the whole October 7th operation, Iran came back and said, hey, you shouldn't have done that. That was something that is not conveyed often. It did not have the approval of Iran. That's kind of why you kind of have seen Hamas really been left to themselves to defend themselves. It's kind of like, well, you know, from Iran's standpoint, it's like you brought it upon yourself, so now you got to defend yourself. But they're going to do whatever they can on their end, and if the other groups that are united or unified with Hamas, want to get involved, and they will get involved. And as we've seen, that Hezbollah immediately started doing their own thing in Lebanon, and the Houthi or Ansar Allah started doing their own thing also in Yemen. And I think Houthi found a very strategic method of getting involved, and that seems to have really pissed off the United States. So that's a totally different issue. Oh wait, where am I? Why am I moving this? Name of the back.
They have their own decision. They have their own choices. It is not related to a phone call to the Houthis.
Houthi attacks that we've seen on commercial shipping, sophisticated weapons. Is Iran supplying those weapons?
Not at all.
Would Iran prefer that the Houthi attacks against commercial shipping, threatening U.S. Naval vessels, do you wish those would stop? Are they helpful?
Yeah, we encourage all of them should stop.
You're encouraging them to stop?
We encourage them for a stop. We expect that the other side also should encourage the Israeli to stop.
On Friday, the U.S. began what's expected to be a wave of attacks in response to the deaths of those American soldiers.
If there was an American attack on Iran or Iranian interests, what do you foresee the reaction would be?
Absolutely, we have their own reaction. We said clearly that if they attack in Iran soil or Iran benefit or Iran individuals all around the world, we have their own reaction. We will defend, absolutely.
And I asked about news Hamas has.
So we'll get so much concern about shipping containers. Actually, since you brought that up, so speaking of shipping containers, here's the tweet by Liz Frieden. She is a correspondent for Fox News. Fox News actually has some really good investigators. Fox News Pentagon producer. The Carney shot down the ballistic missile with an SM-6, which cost $4.3 million. Now, you might ask, who's getting that money? Why does this cost $4.3 million? Have you heard about the Standard Missile 6? The Standard Missile 6 RAM-174. This gets launched out of the warships that we have out there. It's made by Raytheon. This is from military TV. These mil bros love flaunting how much shit costs, and they love talking about the death and destruction that it can cost. Ask anybody that served in the military like what gun they own, and they'll love to tell you about it. But yeah, these latest and sexiest version of the Navy Standard Missile family. Oh, these dudes are jizzing all over their pants, man. But yeah, this is definitely the missile to launch these days. The SM-6 is made from basically the outlines of previous missiles. It's better than a Tomahawk. Yeah, sexiest. GPS guidance, all that stuff. It's weirdos. Yeah. Let's go to the most jerked off to point in the video. Yeah, 5 ships in 2015. It had 35 ships. How old is this video? 1 year ago. But yeah, so I think they said that you can carry how many of these? One ship can carry like 35 or something like that. I think it is. But yeah, they made an order for 1,800 to be purchased. I don't know what's a calculator. Let's fucking do a calculator real quick. How much is $4.3 million times 1,800? $7 trillion. No, wait, is that $7 billion? Okay, that's 100,000. $7 billion in missiles is what one ship. What we've created so far, or what they ordered at least. $7 billion could literally solve homelessness in the United States. I think you only need $6 billion for that.
Has responded to an offer for a hostage deal.
There's been a response from the opposition But yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas.
You better be sorry.
But it seems to be a little over the top. We're not sure where it is.
How do you view the fact that a deal may come about soon?
I think that if the other side accepts the condition of the Hamas, the ceasefire.
So Hamas did send back their requests or their demands, I guess you would say, one way or the other, as far as for the ceasefire agreement. We're going to see probably tomorrow if that's agreed upon or not.
It's possible.
A lasting one?
Lasting one.
Okay, and
Tonight,
also,
Iranian-backed Houthi militia.
get out of here. They always use that same video. But yeah, here's the 1 minute that I don't think they included in that video.
Very explicitly that in the case.
Hold on. So this, like, there has to be like a 40-minute video of this interview, and I want to see it, but they're not going to show it to me because they're jerks.
How far does your support for these groups?
Oh my god. How far does the support go? Okay, I think he did ask that question.
Go? Are you arming them?
I said that we told very explicitly that in the case of the Palestine,
Okay, no, you didn't talk about that.
we sending arm, we training them, and we empowering them. But with the other parts of the region, resistant part of the in the region, we have some coordination.
They demanded equipment to remove rubble. I'm sure this is going to be the most tons of rubble ever in history of any event, any military action. It's going to be historic. It's going to be astronomical. Tents and a few other things. Yeah, I mean, it's basic stuff they need. The U.S., from what I saw, we're trying to intervene and try to get a two-state solution implemented. Is what Biden is kind of like fighting for, or what the administration is fighting for. In my opinion, I think it's not a good idea, because what they're going to do is they're going to, dangle it like another carrot that the Democrats use every election cycle and say, hey, do you want to lose abortion rights? You better vote for the Democrats again. Hey, do you want to lose the two-state solution? Well, you better make sure you vote for the Democrats again. Yeah. Dude, what is wrong with this phone? Okay, there you go. But yeah, the United States is still trying to do some sort of two-state solution, is last that I saw. I think they're trying to wedge that in there when Hamas is basically just seeking a ceasefire in the bare minimum to get people to stop dying, basically. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what the details are. Those are just rumors that I'm saying. I don't know anything. I'm not there. Just like somebody on Threads would tell me, well, you're not there. You don't know what's going on. Why don't you go there and, die in a fire or some shit? Okay, bro. Yeah, we'll find out what the details are once they get released.
Operation, consultation, and maybe some financing also.
Houthi attacks that we've seen on commercial shipping.
Okay, he did ask
sophisticated weapons. Is Iran supplying those weapons?
Yeah,
Not
they
at
cut
all.
that beginning
Is
part.
Iran telling them how to use those
No,
weapons?
it is depend to them. They have their own weapons. They have been 8 years under the war.
Yeah.
They have a lot of experiences.
They've been getting bombed to shit by Saudi Arabia for the last 9 years, man. Like, how do you expect them to not have weapons right now? All right. So hold on. What's this story? Okay, this is the same story. All right. Yeah, I'm going to. There's some really good stuff in here that I do want to watch. So I posted a clip of this video earlier today. It's about Israel is basically going after the UN with a Hasbara tactic.
Israeli spin machine reaps the rewards of misinformation, deflecting audiences away from stories it doesn't want told.
Exactly.
The New York Times has trouble within over its coverage of what really happened on October 7th. And how historical memory in Germany and the residues of guilt limit what can or cannot be said.
Okay, I think I'm only going to care about the first 10 minutes of this video.
At a time when journalists and news audiences should have been focusing on the International Court of Justice's historic ruling last week that Israel is potentially guilty of genocide in the Gaza Strip, a different story started making headlines.
Exactly. We should be talking about the ICJ ruling, not this bullshit, which is all over the news right now.
Was established in 1949 to help Palestinian refugees. According to an Israeli intelligence dossier, which just happened to be made public in the wake of the ICJ ruling, 12 staff members at the agency took part in the October 7th attacks against Israelis. On the back of that news, multiple countries, including the US, UK, and Canada, all pulled their funding from the relief agency.
Exactly.
Apart from the sheer cruelty of defunding a human.
So the entire point of this Hasbara story that they've dropped is to get everybody talking about the UN, the corruption within the UN, to discredit the UN and UNRWA specifically. If you can discredit and defund UNRWA, well, guess what? That's going to result in more Palestinians dying. Because, of course, they're lacking food. Of course, they're lacking the basic necessities. Every single hospital in Palestine has been bombed. Every single hospital in Gaza has been bombed and is basically inoperable. The point is for people to die. And if you can do that by defunding UNRWA, then you've accomplished your goal. And not only that, we're talking about this whole fucking subject instead of talking about the ICJ ruling, which was completely in the headlines for about 5 minutes before this shit dropped. And now we're talking about this. This is all over the news.
Humanitarian organization at a time
instead of the other story.
Palestinians need it most. What is telling about this story is how many Western governments and news outlets still take stories based on Israeli intelligence at face value, even when, time and time again, that so-called intelligence proves to be nothing more than disinformation. On the day the International Court of Justice
disinformation is Hasbara.
That the war on Gaza amounts to a plausible case of genocide, Israeli spin doctors faced a challenge. How could they deflect the global media's attention away from that story? By sharing, on the same day the ICJ ruling came out, an intelligence dossier with their American allies that then becomes big news, alleging that 12 employees at the United Nations Relief and Works Agency took part in Hamas's attacks on October 7th.
That Israel has now shared its intelligence, claiming UN aid workers actually took part in the Hamas attack.
The agency, known by its clunky acronym, UNRWA, is vital in saving the lives of Palestinians.
Oh, that's cool.
And what did the American government make of Israel's allegations? What it usually does.
We haven't had the ability to investigate.
I fully expected to be talking to myself anyway.
It's official.
But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening if you are.
At their word. The same way they did with the Hamas beheaded baby story.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed
this shit.
Pictures of terrorists beheading children.
Okay, so I know they like spliced that together, but there was also a long gap in what he was saying. He never actually saw the photos, is what was released from the White House after that. He just went based on information that was released to him. Now, who released this information? It wasn't necessarily the IDF themselves. It was actually another group that they hired to go out there and basically clean up the bodies and clean up the areas so that the IDF didn't go out there. So you had a group that needed funding, that wanted to get more money. Now, this is going to start sounding like conspiracy theory, but this group was in need of funds. They were basically running out of money, and they went there. And then, like, once people were asking them what they saw, they were like, "Oh, beheaded babies," and that's when you started hearing all these other exaggerated stories. of they cut open like a pregnant woman and they like killed like her and the baby and all this stuff. Like everything that happened on October 7th itself, just killing people, just the fact that it was a prison break, and it was more than a prison break. People say that, but it was a military strategic attack. They went and they attacked IDF bases. Everybody wants to think that they just ran amok and started killing innocent civilians. The majority of their targets were going to be IDF teams, IDF battalions, and IDF bases. They actually held a base for about a day or two before they were fully before the fighters were either captured or killed that were still in the area. It was literally about 4 to 8 hours of just complete chaos is what October 7th was. But the events that happened themselves, people just getting shot, innocent people dying. Of course, you're going to have your casualties and your collateral damage. That in itself is atrocious enough. There wasn't reason to exaggerate stories. There wasn't reason to say, oh yeah, I saw somebody's head get cut off and they kicked it around like a hacky sack or a soccer ball, which is literally what somebody said, that there is no accounting for at all. And so to go and exaggerate that far, like really you make your point too far. You make it unbelievable. So then you have all these people coming back and saying, hey, none of that's true. Like, why should we believe you now? And that kind of takes away from the bad events that actually did happen where innocent people did die. So it's like this, two sides of the blade. It's a bunch of just dumb shit that shouldn't have been part of the story. If it was just, hey, they attacked us, these innocent people died, and they shot them in the street while they were trying to run away, that's bad enough. That's bad enough. You don't have to exaggerate beyond that.
And again, with the trope that the hospitals...
And then this dumbass and the other dumbass before him just going with the stories. Exactly, and they never verified anything. They just give it to you. They never come back and apologize and say, hey, that story that we said yesterday wasn't true, because they would be discrediting themselves, and then they would lose trust with the public that they're feeding all this fucking bullshit to.
In Gaza were Hamas command centers in disguise.
Hamas continues to use hospitals as locations for its command posts.
They take unproven, dubious Israeli allegations and legitimize them.
Yes.
So here we go again.
So it suggests that somebody wanted to change the subject. And we don't know who, we don't know exactly how it leaked, how it got to the media. But at a moment when the International Court of Justice had issued a devastating ruling against Israel, finding it plausibly committing genocide in Gaza.
So you have this Israeli dossier, it's now out, able for all of you to read.
Suddenly the media is focusing on the complicity of UNRWA staff in the October 7th attack.
We don't see that people are talking about the implementation of the ICJ decision. We don't see that news outlets are labeling Israel the genocidal state that it is, covering, monitoring, checking to see whether Israel's actually preventing genocide as it was ordered to do. And instead, most of the coverage is now about these accusations.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency employs 13,000 people in Gaza. The aid they
13,000 people in Gaza
provide civilians, hospitals, schools, and elsewhere in the Strip has never been more essential. One would think that with the Israeli government accused of starving Gazans to death, political players would watch their words on the relief agency. This right-wing lobbyist did not just a few weeks ago at a meeting at the Knesset.
I'm sorry, run that by me again, lady. She said, it will be impossible to win the war if we do not destroy UNRWA. So, meaning basically she wants to cut off the food supply and any supplies really to the Palestinian people. Because her solution is to, rather than go after the IQB, which is the fighters of the Hamas, or I'm sorry, the militant wing of Hamas, rather than go after the IQB specifically and, you know, go into the tunnels and actually fight them there, or actually do sufficient attacks, they would rather do genocide. So they would rather do collective punishment. Yes, they're genocidal maniacs. They would rather go after the people of Palestine who are above ground, and continue bombing them, take all the food away, make sure they have no water. They make sure that all the water plants are shut down, all the desalination plants are shut down, make sure that they have no power, make sure that they have no way of internet or any way of exposing as to what's going on, and continue to murder them. That, if that doesn't sound like genocide to you, then I don't know what would. And this destruction must begin immediately, is what she says.
The sourcing of the initial allegation that 12 UNRWA workers took part in the October 7th attacks came in part from confessions coerced out of Palestinian prisoners.
Oh yeah, so they just tortured the shit out of these guys and made them confess to whatever they could get them to confess to. And I'm sure once one person kind of said this, then they asked the next person, "Hey, did you take part in October 7th?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, please get me out of the Palestinian chair," which is a torture tactic. I do mention that often, but yeah, don't ever look up what the Palestinian chair is, because it'll fuck up your mind.
Interrogations that have been known to include torture.
What specifically is the evidence? I think that's what the public wants to know.
Well, there is an abundance of evidence based on investigation of Hamas terrorists that have been arrested, and they've provided a lot of information.
The fact that you take 12 cases, as you claim, and try to link UNRWA to the Palestinian resistance is already indicative of how Western governments
Japan suspends UN funding for UNRWA.
Are exhibiting total
UK, Italy, others. I mean, Italy, they were fascist before. I expect that from them. Japan has been run by fascists since 1945. UK is just fascist to begin with.
Complicity. Israel has managed to take a very tenuous
Germany
and feed it
Canada
to Western governments who have happily obliged to defund a central organization that is so central to the ability of Palestinians in Gaza to receive humanitarian aid.
And that stands in contrast to, for example, the response of the U.S. government to Israel. We have abundant evidence of war crimes.
Right.
Nobody's been prosecuted. Biden continues the 3.8.
Oh, Spain tripled their funding? See, they're trying to make it back. They're trying to make it back for me speaking Spanish and being Catholic. They're trying to make up for it. That's what it is.
$1 billion in annual military assistance to Israel. What's behind this distinction? You know, why does UNRWA, when it does the right thing, get its funds suspended, and Israel, when it does the wrong thing, keeps the funding coming?
There is no doubt that from the perspective of Israel, the ability to limit UNRWA will be beneficial. Now, we need to look at the reactions of other states and other players which are receiving that information.
It will be a complete and thorough and transparent.
I didn't think there was going to be somebody in the Biden administration that I was going to hate as much as fucking John Kirby. But dude, oh god, I really dislike this guy so much.
Investigation.
So thus far, from the reaction of states and international organizations,
he's just such a
the United
sleazy
States,
liar.
The evidence seems to have some compelling force. At the same time, we are under the fog of war. We need to be skeptic about any piece of evidence we hear.
There was more fog to come courtesy of the
Yeah,
Wall Street Journal.
his face for
3
sure.
days after the UNRWA story broke, the New York-based paper put out a piece, again based on Israeli intelligence,
If I had the
saying
chance.
that 1 in 10 UNRWA workers had quote-unquote links to Hamas.
So they have links to Hamas. Like, literally, you could... There's 2 million people there. Have you ever heard of, like, 6 degrees of separation? Like, if your aunt's cousin's, like, brother is a part of Hamas, which Hamas is not the militant group. Okay, they're talking about militants, so they're talking about the IQB then. So they're not necessarily talking about Hamas. See, this is kind of the problem, is there's been this huge conflation between the IQB, which is the militant wing, and Hamas. So when somebody says Hamas, it can be the IQB, yes. But Hamas themselves are also the government of Gaza. Like, to say somebody is in the U.S. Army and to say that they're Republican are two different things, right? Like, that's the only way I can put that analogy.
The report...
Because you could also be Democrat or independent and still be in the military, or, you know, the other way around. Like, you don't have to be one, or you don't have to be both. It can be one or the other.
did not specify just what those links were.
Exactly.
Carrie Keller-Lynn co-authored that story. It turns out she's an American who volunteered for the Israeli military and is seen here linked.
This motherfucker. I forgot about this. Oh, shit. The IDF literally wrote the story.
To one of the Army's spokespersons. After her piece was published, the list of countries pulling their money out of UNRWA grew. We asked the journal about its story and its co-author. It declined to comment.
The problem with these types of allegations
They declined to comment. I'm not surprised.
is that they adopt an Israeli narrative without question.
I'm going to go back and clip that, and I'm just going to say the IDF literally wrote this story and
or
posted it.
second guessing that Israeli narrative. And Israel casts a very wide net for who it terms to be or who it deems to be a member of Hamas. And we've seen this with the statements that they've made that there are no innocents in Gaza. This is from as high up as the president. And so for them to make such an assertion should be something that is questioned or challenged.
The Wall Street Journal basically published unedited an Israeli intelligence dossier, and it treated it as fact, and that 10% of UNRWA staff were somehow linked, whatever that means, to Hamas. Now, that's a very fuzzy term, and the New York Times has said, well, UNRWA doesn't even claim to have the capacity to vet its staff. Once a year, it's been handing a list of UNRWA staff to the
There is a list.
Israeli government.
I'm the list guy.
And so were they asleep at the switch? And why, therefore, does UNRWA get punished, and therefore the Palestinian civilian population of Gaza get punished, when Israel didn't do its job?
It's been 1 week since the ICJ ruled that Israel must prevent acts of genocide.
Has it been 1 week? It feels like it's been a month. Holy shit.
Incitement and facilitate aid to
This came out 3 days ago. It
Taking
could
those
not.
points in
my
order, the assault on Gaza goes on, killing Palestinians.
Yes.
Settler organizations are still inciting Israelis, saying openly that they have their eyes on the Strip.
This motherfucker, Smotrich right here. He said we are settling our land, controlling it. So Smotrich is in charge of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank, by the way. Always fighting terror and bringing security for all of Israel, is what he said
As
to
for the
Cheers.
aid, right-wing Israelis have been blocking some of it at the Egyptian border, and Israeli soldiers have stood by and let them. And Israeli spokespersons keep...
Yeah, so, oh yeah, this guy's a piece of shit also. This is pretty much the guy that got Mehdi Hassan fired. for his arguments with Mehdi. Mehdi put him up against the wall. I will admit to that. He did him pretty dirty on the show for the good of all people. Yeah, the way they're portrayed in the media, they get very little pushback.
Keep smearing a humanitarian relief agency.
And also, like, these people that are protesting over here, I've seen several people on threads say, you know, put me in, let me take the wheel, and you know, I'll make sure I run over the trash or whatever. I can't, you know, knock them for that stance. In my opinion, I don't think anybody should be dying. But you know, it is what it is. There's a lot of people that are dying in Gaza because of this, and not only that, they've also fired upon these trucks that are trying to get in there and give aid to the Palestinians. That is also a major issue, and there are photos of that. I don't know what they've hit these trucks with, but they have been some sort of, like, maybe I would say like 10 by 10 explosion. I'm not sure exactly what they're hitting them with, but that's definitely a major problem.
Because Hamas uses UNRWA's status as a UN agency to launder its talking points and propaganda.
Israel and its Western allies know propaganda when they see it.
Oh, yeah.
How to use it to pull funding from a lifeline for Palestinians starved of food and water. It's an axis of complicity.
Exactly.
Aided and abetted at times by the Fourth Estate.
Israel has been able to shift that conversation, but it's only able to do so because it has these editorial boards in line
NBC.
with it, complicit with it in terms of framing.
There's ABC.
We have seen this throughout the war, stories that have been fed into Western media.
There's NBC Nightly News again.
Goes along with Israeli policy of legitimating its own actions in Gaza, deflecting from its own massacres, and creating the conditions for the perpetuating of the carrying war.
And this is where we have to step back and really question, is this the type of international order that we want? Maybe Israel should look inward and ask themselves, are we really following the letter of the law when we drop the equivalent of 2 Hiroshima bombs on the Gaza Strip within 1 month? When this is the largest number of children deaths?
So, I'll never forget I did a report on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in high school. The Hiroshima bomb was much larger than the Nagasaki bomb, which is why they say to Hiroshima.
When we've seen more journalists killed by Israeli bombs in Gaza than we saw during the entire Second World War, maybe they should start looking to those things rather than trying to smear UNRWA.
A story that emerged in the early days of the war was of Israeli allegations of sexual violence by Hamas during its attack on October 7th. The accuracy of a New York Times report on those allegations is now being called into question, and Meenakshi Ravi is here with more.
Numerous outlets have published investigations into Israel's accusations that Hamas systematically used rape and sexual assault against victims on October 7th. It narrated horrifically what the Times called a pattern of rape, mutilation, and extreme brutality against women during the attacks on Israel. Many critics of mainstream coverage on Israel and Palestine called out the article for alleged inaccuracies and questionable sourcing. Publicly, the Times stood by its reporting, but according to the US investigative outlet The Intercept, in the NYT's newsroom, a quote, furious internal debate was taking place. The Intercept has reported that an episode of one of the Times' most popular podcasts, The Daily, that was supposed to be an audio retelling of the December article was put...
Yeah, so The Daily is actually a pretty good podcast. I would recommend following that if you have Spotify or whatever podcast app. They actually, they had a really, really good one on United States Air Force drone pilots. There was I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here, but the story was just fucking phenomenal. and incredibly sad because they talked about the depression that the United States drone pilots go through because they know they're killing people, but they never get to see what happens. So like that is like a mental issue, and they talked about how they God, I'll have to find the story. I'll have to find the story and play it one day because it doesn't that's why I feel for our soldiers. I like one thing that I post about often is that how does this affect the United States soldiers? There's a lot of stuff that we put people through that nobody should have to live through. Nobody should have to live through that on either side of the gun, and I think it sucks. I really think it's terrible for everybody that's involved.
Put a hold, and some editorial staff share the criticisms made of the original report.
But this story, that the Daily, their one time their podcast got pulled, was because Michael Barbaro did an interview, or he basically was reading back the story of it, and I don't know that it's been published yet, but I'm gonna try and find it.
One example. The family of an Israeli woman killed on October 7th, whose story was the main case study in the piece. They've denounced the article. The Times reported that she had been raped. Her relatives said they had no reason to believe that. Some other sources the Times used have had their reliability seriously questioned, including by the Israeli media, no less. That podcast has yet to be released, and according to The Intercept, the producers, quote, find themselves in a jam. Run a version that hews closely to the previously published story and risk republishing serious mistakes, or publish a heavily toned down version raising questions about whether the paper still stands by the original report.
Thanks, Mina. Israel's war on Gaza and the way it has been covered has shed some light on the limits on freedom of speech in Western democracies, what some people have come to call the Palestine exception. Nowhere is that more evident than in Germany. Historical guilt over the extermination of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust.
Okay, I saw the relation to this, but honestly, I didn't. I'm just gonna skip this part of the story. I think if you want to catch it, go ahead and follow the Al Jazeera video. I think it's good. I'm already an hour into the stream, so I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is for our favorite. So your favorite wine mom will be posting about Jon Stewart returning to the Daily Show. Your favorite threads or Twitter or Facebook or whoever wine mom that says that, you know, they want to they listen to both sides of the story, and they want to, you know, I just want to vote for Joe Biden. That's all. They definitely have a boner for Jon Stewart. So let's see what he had to say today. I'm going to give him 8 minutes and see what's up.
We've learned in our conversation about...
Mother, father, nobody has an audio worth of goddamn shit. Maybe I'm just loud. I think I'm just loud. Can I click on this? What happened?
About this country's staggering number of gun-related deaths. That it's based on a surprising amount of non-gun factors. God, media, and crazy people.
Oh, we're going to talk about guns. Let's go.
That's God, media, and crazy people. That's a pretty busy graphic. Can we streamline that and yet also represent all three constituencies? There you go. All right.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this conversation is taking place between parties of good faith, and that all of us, on any side of the debate, are anti-massacre. If some common sense firearms regulations might cut the number of these killings, why?
Oh no, I guarantee you they're gonna start having full-on boners for Jon Stewart because he was the greatest ever back when he was on there before Trevor Noah. Can't talk about Trevor Noah because he's too brown. Is this an old clip? This is from 15 hours ago. I wish they would add an original air date. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the old one. Okay, so he is coming back soon, isn't he? I'm glad you pointed that out. I was gonna sit here and watch an old clip. Jon Stewart coming back.
election year guaranteed to divide us.
This is a debacle.
Finally, a second term we can all agree on.
I will be wearing a suit.
Hey, you know what? You're right. He looks so young here.
I will be showered. I'm sorry.
Oh, February 12th. Okay. So I thought it was already happening. Okay, well then, fuck this shit.
Wearing overalls, and I won't shower.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. New episodes Mondays starting February 12th at 11 on Comedy Central.
Prepare to get
and
yelled
on
at.
Paramount Plus.
Oh, dude, that's when he broke Tucker Carlson. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Well, as you may have heard by now, Jon
dog, your audio is so loud. I'm sorry.
Stewart is returning to The Daily Show. Pretty incredible. He is fantastic, and I can't wait to see him return
this is a good clip.
detach from reality, eventually
We
reaching the Tucker Carlson.
Since he's coming back, we definitely have to watch this.
We know today, and
I got to give you a little bit of Jon Stewart, right? Just
before he was the modern version of Tucker, Jon Stewart saw that dishonesty of his whole act and called it out to his face. Here it is.
I think oftentimes the person that knows they can't win is allowed to speak the most freely, and because otherwise shows with titles such as Crossfire, or Hardball, or I'm gonna kick your ass, or we'll jump on it. In many ways, it's funny, you know.
He's been living off of this clip and this moment for the last like 30 years, basically, not 20 years.
And I made a special effort to come on the show today because I have privately amongst my...
Dude, okay, so you liked him back then. I think everybody liked him back then because he was saying, you know, what everybody should be thinking, right? I think he was to the left of what the general consensus was. You have to remember, this is 2004. This is after Iraq and Afghanistan. When Iraq and Afghanistan happened, I think there were a lot of people that went to the right, and there's a reason for that. I'm gonna go on a rant right now. So this motherfucker that died, right? Toby Keith, red, white, and blue. This son of a bitch that died here. I'm gonna crank this down pretty low, but you can. I'll leave the lyrics playing. Love that he expired during Black History Month. Yes. Now this nation that I love has fallen under attack. At the top of the list. Apparently, there's a list, and it's a pretty long list. At this point in time, who are we bombing? I can't remember. I don't know. Probably some South American country. Statue of Liberty started shaking her fist. But yeah, this kind of bullshit is the type of bullshit that he put out. Not only did he put out this bullshit about, Islamophobia and killing brown people, but also Beer for My Horses lyrics. So the first, I want to say the first, we got too many gangsters doing dirty deeds. Yeah, it's a... Will a man come on 6 o'clock news, said somebody's been shot, somebody been abused, somebody blew up a building, which sounds like Christian nationalist terrorism to me, in the United States. See the AT&T Tennessee bombing, if you want to know about that. Somebody stole a car, somebody got away, somebody didn't get too far. Yeah, they didn't get too far. Next screen, please. Grandpappy told my pappy back in the day, son, a man had to answer for the wicked crimes he done. Take all the rope in Texas, find a tall oak tree, round up all them bad boys, hang them high in the street for all the people to see. If that's not poetry, I don't know what is. But it sounds very much like he wants to lynch some people. We had the whole Jason Aldean try that in a small town not too long ago. This is what Toby Keith contributed to the culture of the United States. So this still gets played on the radio, apparently. But yeah. all the rope, find a tree, and then hang him high. Sounds a little racist. But that was the ideology, and that's what a lot of people, that's what was getting put out back around this time, 2004. So to loop this back into this conversation here, we were very much we got to get these brown people, and we got to blow them up. And when I say we, I just mean the United States in general, right? And that kind of was the attitude, because you saw that reflect in George W. Bush, his re-election numbers. I think he obliterated John Kerry in the polls and in the election, because everybody was very much on board with killing more brown people because of 9/11. God, there's been this stupid fucking story about 9/11 and like Israel doing 9/11. That is like you were 6 years old. So the whole, it's really, I'm gonna start going off on people on this whole, like, they're trying to say that Israel did 9/11. No, that is fucking literal Nazi fucking talking point bullshit. Like the whole, like, oh, like the IDF actually, there was secret, they were weight 7 might be. I don't know what that means. But like the whole, I'm just gonna put this out as a warning. Anybody that is saying that Israel did 9/11 is diminishing the fact of the Taliban and everything that the Taliban had done since the Mujahideen were fighting and torturing Russians in the 80s. That was a long time for that to happen. There's a lot of people involved. If you want to tell me that Israel did the USS Cole bombing, then I'm going to believe that you're an insane person and that you have been completely brainwashed by the dumb shit that you're reading on the internet. So don't come at me with a fucking dumb... yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've been seeing that? Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound right to me. It's not right at all. It's actually a fucking literal Nazi talking point, because Nazis hate the Jewish people and they hate Israel. It's something that they've been trying to connect them to for forever, because if we got them to hate, if we got the United States to hate Israel because of 9/11 and we connected those two things, then that would be an accomplishment for the fucking Nazi idiots that are out there that are just severe right-wingers. It has nothing to do with what's going on right now. It's a stupid-ass talking point. It's been going on for decades at this point. If you see somebody talking about it, call them out. Be like, hey, this is not true. This is a Nazi talking point. That's all you have to say. Say, hey, this is a Nazi talking point. Stop talking about it. Stop saying it like this. Because with people like Jackson Hinkle and who is it, Jake Shields, all those nut jobs that are actual right wingers trying to push these talking points and trying to look like they support Palestine, but they don't. They really just hate Jewish people. Like that is a major problem. That there are people that do want to support Palestine that are actually following them, retweeting them, and having all those problems from doing that. It's a major issue. It's something that the right wing loves to perpetrate, because it not only causes infighting within the left wing, but it also spreads disinformation, and that's a major problem. All right, rant over. Jon Stewart. Yeah, can't stand Jackson Hinkle. I fucking hate that guy. All right, so Jon Stewart again.
And also in occasional newspapers and television shows. Mentioned this show.
Oh yeah, he dumps all over Tucker Carlson. Look at Tucker Carlson with this dumb fucking bow tie, looking like a little fucking rich boy bitch.
As being bad. And I felt that wasn't fair, and I should come here and tell you that I don't, it's not so much that it's bad as it's hurting America. So I wanted to come here today and say,
wait.
Here's just what I wanted to tell you guys.
Yeah.
Stop.
Actually, I did see that post, and I remember she went private for a bit. And then as soon as she went on private, I went back to her post and I was like, this is fucking dumb.
Stop hurting America.
Okay, now
and come work for us, because we, as the people.
How do you pay?
The people, not well.
Better than CNN, I'm sure.
But you can sleep at night. See, the thing is, we need your help. Right now you're helping the politicians and the corporations, and we're left out there to mow our lawns.
You just said we're too rough on them when they make mistakes.
No, you're not too rough on them. You're part of their strategies. You're partisan, what do you call it, hacks.
Exactly. Jon Stewart was 100% right here in calling both of them, not just Tucker Carlson. He was calling the host partisan hacks because they align with capital. What he was trying to say is that the average American is back home trying to mow their lawn, get on with their daily life, and basically try to make it, right? As we all are. We're all trying to make it. While these motherfuckers, Tucker Carlson is the heir to Swanson. Yes, the frozen dinners. Tucker Carlson was already a millionaire. He doesn't have to do this job. He didn't have to be on Fox News for the next 10, 20 years, however long it was that he was on there. The guy that's hosting this show didn't necessarily have to continue to be on there and platform people like Tucker Carlson. To platform somebody is to have them on your show and let them speak their piece. When you do that, you kind of spread their word, whether you want to or not. It's like if I tried to have a debate with like the worst Nazi person that you could think of, like, so let's say Jackson Hinkle. Like if I had a debate with him, then that would mean that by me having the debate, people are going to hear his talking points. And when they hear his talking points, some people, if they're fucking stupid, will be like, oh man, yeah, that makes fucking sense to my dumb brain. But that's why the host is also called a partisan hack.
Wait, John, let me tell you something. We're here to love you, not confront you.
No, but what I'm saying is this. I'm not. I'm here to confront you because we need help from the media, and they're hurting us.
Exactly.
And the idea is...
If the indictment... Let me get this straight. If the indictment is... if the indictment is, and I have seen you say this, that Crossfire reduces everything, as I said in the intro, to left, right, black, white.
Yes.
Well, it's because, see, we're a debate show. It's like saying the Weather Channel...
No, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, when you have people that are centrist and then you have people that are right-wingers and they try to debate, you can't have a debate between centrists and right-wingers, because what ends up happening is the centrists will agree with the right-wingers. The right-wingers will convince the centrists that their talking points are better. Now, you essentially have two sides of the same party, which is what we have in the United States when we try to go and pick a president.
Storm.
I would love to see a debate
in
show.
a 24-hour day where we have each side on as best we can get
No.
them,
That would be great.
and have them fight it out.
To do a debate would be great, but that's like saying pro wrestling is a show about athletic competition.
I think you're a good comedian. I think your lectures are boring. Let me ask you.
He's trying to discredit Jon Stewart right there.
Let me ask you a question on the news.
Now, this is theater. I mean, it's obvious. How
And Jon Stewart has an excellent comeback saying that this is theater. This is just made up bullshit. None of this matters. It's literally, he's wearing the tie, his whole performance that he's doing right now is literally just that. It's just a performance.
How old are you?
35.
And you wear a bow tie.
Yeah, I do.
so this is...
No, I know. You're right. No, let me just go. Now, come on.
And listen, I'm not
soul crushing. That is soul crushing.
Suggesting that you're not a smart guy, because those are not easy to tie. But the thing is that you're doing theater when you should be doing debate, which
exactly.
would be great.
No, it's
not honest. What you do is not honest. What you do is partisan hackery. And I'll tell you why I know
Kerry
it.
on your show, and you sniff his throne, and you're accusing us of partisan hackery?
Absolutely.
You've got to be kidding, man.
You're on CNN.
Say,
the show that leads into me is puppets making crank phone calls. What is wrong with you?
Well, I'm just saying, there's no reason for you, when you have this marvelous opportunity not to be the guy's butt boy, to go ahead and be his butt boy.
Yes,
It's embarrassing.
I was absolutely his butt boy. I was so far. You would not believe what he ate 2 weeks ago. You know, the interesting thing that I have is you have a responsibility.
See, and that's kind of like what I do is like people want to make you mad so they can make you lose the talking point, right? And just kind of get off kilter. And people want to talk shit. And if you've ever like seen me on Threads argue with somebody, they'll be like, "Oh, well, you know, all you do is like post videos from YouTube." And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that's not wrong. But also, Grandma, did you know that like YouTube actually has the current news, and not only that, it has international news, and it has like Al Jazeera and like, you know, also like left wing news from the UK, and not only that, like, you know, there's also, I also watch a lot of right wing news and right wing YouTubers to get their perspectives at all. I mean, at all. Also. So yeah, when I say I'm well informed, I'm looking at shit from the left wing and the right wing.
To the public discourse.
But to try and discredit somebody is the first strategy of kind of really just fascism. Like, I even see me in a fight. When the hospital thing happened. When the IDF went into the hospital and killed those people, I was fighting with people in this stupid ABC news article, and it really annoyed me. But anyway, but yeah, people always try. That's the first strategy, is to first try to discredit you and question what you believe. If somebody can establish those two things right away, you are completely off kilter. You won't know what else to come back with. And I think a lot of the blue MAGA people have a lot of experience with that, because that's what MAGA, that's what right-wingers, that's what, again, fascists do. And they have a lot of experience in fighting fascists, so they have adapted their strategies. They've adapted the fascist strategy. And that's why you see blue MAGA really just kind of posting dumb Trump memes, where they're like, don't talk shit about Joe Biden, but here's a Trump meme about, you know, Trump being stinky or some shit, some dumb shit like that, right? Anyway, Jon Stewart fighting these two guys and those strategies.
And you fail miserably.
I think.
Yeah.
You need to go to one. The thing that I want to say,
yeah, I think Tucker was on CNN at this point,
is when you have people on for just knee-jerk reactionary talk.
Wait, I thought you were going to be funny. Come on, be funny.
Blue MAGA on Threads is the absolute worst. Yes. So when I said wine moms earlier, that's what I meant. Like Blue MAGA, they love Jon Stewart. Now, going back to something that I said earlier, was Jon Stewart was very much here, far to the left of the American people, because again, the American people were very much still kind of in that bloodthirst of we need to blow up some brown people. I think we, as a collective group of what is now considered the left, if you really look at it, are beyond Jon Stewart as far as to his leftism. He is really kind of more the centrist liberal right now in everything that he's been talking about. Yes, he wants to fight for the soldiers' benefits for people that were in 9/11 and suffer from the complexities of the like the rubble that they ingested and the cancer that they've been ingesting in that, and also soldiers that were in burn pits. They weren't in the burn pits, but they were around burn pits in Afghanistan. That's a couple of the issues that he's been fighting for when he's been off screen these past few years. I'm all for it. I think those are good stances to have. But whenever he's on TV, he definitely has the neoliberal stance of kind of pushing the envelope, but not pushing it too far so you don't get deplatformed by corporate media. So in that, he kind of is a puppet for corporate media, and I think most leftists in the United States have moved past that. And so that's kind of why you won't see a very warm reception from leftists of Jon Stewart. And those that do love the shit out of him will more than likely be the blue MAGA wine moms that are like, oh my God, Jon Stewart, I always loved him. And like never admit that, they will never admit to his stances on Palestine or anything like that in the past.
No, I'm not going to be your monkey.
They just want a clean guy to get behind. But yeah, he said, I thought you were going to be funny, is what Tucker Carlson said, Tuckles. And then Jon Stewart said, I'm not going to be your monkey.
Go ahead. I watch your show every day, and it kills me.
I can tell you what.
It's so painful to watch. Because we need what you do. This is such a great opportunity you have here to act.
Yeah, exactly. So again, Jon Stewart, I'm pretty sure in order for him to get back on the Daily Show, he's not going to be able to be like ceasefire now at the end of every show. I don't think he's going to be able to say that. I don't think he's going to be able to talk shit about the IDF and post, like when the IDF blows themselves up or, kills 24 of their own people. I don't think he's going to be able to talk about those things. That's going to be stuff that you might see on Twitch from certain leftist streamers, but probably not too much. Even that is censored. So, yeah, if that's censored, then definitely something that's on cable TV will definitely be censored. And that is neoliberalism in a nutshell, is whatever's going to make us profits and doesn't upset too many people.
Actually get politicians
really Jon
off
Stewart?
of their marketing and strategy. Yeah, it's someone who watches your show and cannot take it anymore. I just can't.
What's it like to have dinner with you? It must be excruciating. Do you lecture people like this? Or do you come over to their house and sit and lecture them and, they're not doing the right thing, that they're missing their opportunities, evading their responsibilities?
If I think they are.
Ugh. I wouldn't want to eat with you, man. That's horrible.
I know. And
Tucker is out of material at this point. He's going off the cuff and he has no idea what to say.
You won't. But the thing I want to get to...
We did promise naked pictures of the Supreme
Court.
Yeah, we
did. No. Let's get to those.
Why can't we just talk?
Book.
Please, I beg of you guys.
I think you watch too much Crossfire. We're going to take a quick break.
No. Look,
hold on.
We're going to take a quick break.
Please.
Next, Jon Stewart in the rapid fire.
Please
Hopefully
stop.
He'll be here. We hope. We think.
So I'll play more from after they come back from commercial in a little bit, but I have to say, something is super sad about watching those moments.
Go to the potty.
Because it reminds me of one of the aspects I dislike about covering the news and covering so many of these people in the media. It's the knowledge in the back of my head that drives me crazy. Especially in the modern Trump-loyal media, so many figures just don't believe a single word they're saying. And as someone who got into this because I just cared about these issues and care about politics a ton and was just sort of obsessed with politics, that's super hard to contend with. So when I play clips of people on Fox News saying this thing or that thing, I'll try my best to respond to their points as presented, assuming they're genuinely expressing their views, but I know they aren't. I know this is just an act for so many of them. They're playing a character, as Jon Stewart was calling out, and that makes it a lot harder to get excited about debunking things and arguing with people, because no matter what we say or do, no matter what facts we can present, if it's still profitable, Fox will keep chugging along, Newsmax will keep chugging along, etc. It feels like we can't move the needle sometimes. And as an example of this, it reminds me of reading Tucker Carlson's text that came out during the Dominion lawsuit process, where he said he hates Trump with a passion, and we read that while all knowing that he'd go out on the air the next night and be supportive of Trump and bolster his messages.
And that's why the news is essentially bullshit, because you would think that, like, there really is no left-wing news media outlets in the United States. You might say PBS, but even PBS is NewsHour and the Democracy Now! They still have to float the lines, right? Like, they can't go full on like, IDF bad, Israel bad. They can't say stuff like that, right? So you have to be able to still get funding. God, this is leading me to this. Oh God, I hate this song. But Al Jazeera has this really, really good video that I highly recommend watching on manufactured consent. If you've never seen this before, Noam Chomsky, this was 6 years ago.
Authored a book with Edward Herman called Manufacturing Consent.
Here, I'll play the first few seconds of this.
Propaganda.
Propaganda.
Many use the word when talking about countries like North Korea, Kazakhstan, Iran.
So we always say that other countries that like dictatorships are full of propaganda because they have state-run media, right?
Countries viewed as authoritarian through the lens of the Western media.
Right.
Press freedom, freedom of thought. People use those terms when talking about countries like the United States, France, Australia.
So we have the freest country in the world, is what a right-winger will tell you. At the same time, you know, that they tell you that earlier that day they watched Fox News, or they only watched one channel of news, right? They don't get the full spectrum of what actually happened in the world. So they only know that, you know, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are dating, and that it's a psyop or some crazy shit or whatever.
Democracies. In 1988, Noam Chomsky co-authored a book with Edward Herman called Manufacturing Consent.
So I have not finished this book, but I would highly recommend looking into what manufacturing consent means. Amy Goodman is actually the narrator here. She is from Democracy Now! She's been on Democracy Now! For fucking decades now. She's an excellent reporter. I think she's an excellent anchor.
It blasted apart the notion that media acts as a check on political power. That media inform the public, serve the public, so that we can better engage in the political process.
So, one point that I want to make in this whole manufacturing consent that I don't think is said enough is, again, you know, I said state-run media is often what we in the United States will call other countries like Russia or China or whoever that we want to say that they're authoritarians. Will say their media is run by the state, which in fact, yes, it is, because it's funded by the state. In the United States, we have capitalist-run media, as in all of our media is funded through capitalism. So that means that whatever sells is what's going to fund the media. So if Wix or, you know, or Sabra, the corporate runs our media. So let's just say this, for example, to be an example of what's going on. I think it's Sabra is the one that makes the hummus, right? Wix is also an Israeli company. Ebit Systems is an Israeli company. Let's say all these companies are funding a particular news network, and they don't like what's being said on there. They're going to say, hey, don't say that stuff, or else we're not going to give you any more money. And that company is going to say, oh shit, yes sir, whatever you want us to do, please continue to give us more money. So that is kind of where capitalism fails, where you expect funding to keep on coming through and profits to continue to rise every year. Warner Brothers funds CNN, for example. So if somebody's talking shit about Warner Brothers, you're not going to see it on CNN. Same thing would be if somebody's talking shit about Wix, you wouldn't see it on that theoretical channel that I was talking about. That's where capitalism fails, and that's where we see that our media is actually capitalist-funded media. That's not something that we say about ourselves. That's not something that we say about the news.
In fact, media manufacture our consent.
So when they say manufacturing consent, I'm just going to cut this short. I'm going to cut the video short, even though I've probably talked longer than the video. Manufacturing consent means that, hey, we want to push a point. And when I say we, it could be the United States themselves. Because without the United States, without regulations, without approval, none of these channels would be on TV, right? None of them would be able to broadcast within the United States. So if the United States military, for example, says that, hey, don't run that story's not going to get run. Because they would lose funding, they would lose approval, they would lose the ability to broadcast. So that's kind of where this whole manufacturing consent thing comes in. So let's say that something like the military says, oh, well, yeah, we want to run this story about, the United States bombing the Houthi and say that it's a good thing. So if you run that story enough, the people in the United States will believe that is a good thing, that bombing the Houthi, that bombing Yemen is actually a really good thing because it gives us freedom. And so what you have done there is you have manufactured consent of the American people. And what is the most important is the consent of the American people. If you can get consent from the public, then you can pretty much do whatever the fuck you want. Like, you can go and bomb the shit out of Gaza, you can bomb the shit out of Yemen, you can bomb the shit out of Iraq, Afghanistan, any other country, South America, Chile, wherever we want to go and, kill anybody with our $1 trillion war machine, we can do that. As long as you manufacture the consent and get the okay from the people. Now, the question might be is like, okay, well, when has this ever gone wrong? It went wrong with Vietnam. It went wrong with Korea. Those two wars were not popular at all. They actually cost presidencies. I think it was, who was it? Was it Johnson? That basically retired before his election even came up. He retired. And he was like, no, I give up. I'm not going to run for office. And then the Democrats proceeded to lose. I think it was Reagan that got elected or something. Yeah, when you can't manufacture consent and you lose the people, then you are going to lose something as major as presidencies. And that's why it's extremely important to manufacture consent. That's why it's extremely important to twist, that arm behind the person that's giving the news. And it's extremely important to go and say, hey, you better say whatever we're telling you to say or else you're going to get fired. So that's why, in my opinion, I don't see the benefit of Jon Stewart coming back when we've already moved so far further left than what his stances are. But hopefully he does something good.
Watching more.
I do want to watch the rest of this.
Welcome back to Crossfire. We're talking to Jon Stewart, who was just lecturing us on our moral inferiority. John, you're bumming us out. Tell us, what do you think?
That was a good jab by Tucker. He's lecturing us on our moral inferiority.
For the Bill O'Reilly vibrator story.
Also that face.
I'm sorry? I don't.
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
Let me change the subject then.
Where's your moral outrage on this?
I don't have any.
I know.
Which candidate do you suppose would provide you better material?
I'm sorry?
Which candidate do you suppose would provide you better material if he won?
Mr. T. I think he'd be the funniest.
But you have a stake in it that way, as not just a citizen, but as a professional comic.
Right. Which I hold to be much more important than
I mean, Mr. T loved Nancy Reagan. They got along in more ways than one, by the way.
Citizen.
Well, there you go. Well, who would provide you better material, do you suppose?
I don't really know. It's kind of not how we look at it.
See, and now it's a 2v1. It's a 2v1 interview. And it's they're going to go after Jon Stewart for basically anything and everything that they can.
We look at the absurdity of this system provides us the most material, and that is best served by sort of the theater of it all, which, by the way, thank you both, because it's been helpful.
But if Kerry gets elected, is it good? I mean, you said you're voting for him. You obviously support him. It's clear.
Yeah, you're talking about John Kerry. John Kerry was like one of the weakest candidates that the Democrats have ever put up.
Will it be harder for you to mock his administration if he becomes president?
Now, why would it be harder?
Because
the only way it would be harder is if his administration is less absurd than this one. So in that case, if it's less absurd, then yeah, I think it'd be harder. But I mean, it'd be hard to top this group. I mean, quite frankly.
Yeah. You had Cheney, you had Condoleezza Rice, and of course Bush, and they were all just idiots. They had no idea what they were doing. Cheney was basically the one in charge, just kind of like how we see Antony Blinken. Who was the better Anthony? This one or the one from Ant-Man? Probably the one from Ant-Man. Yeah, you had Cheney basically running the show as he wanted to for years, and Cheney's a warmonger.
In terms of absurdity,
the crowd is still behind Jon Stewart, and that's what's hilarious here, is that as much as these two guys tried to attack Jon Stewart, he never lost his bearings, and he kept the crowd.
Their world matching up.
This is probably why you don't see a live studio audience in front of anybody doing debates now.
To the one that, you know, it was interesting. President Bush was saying, you know, John Kerry, his rhetoric doesn't match his record. But I've heard President Bush describe his record. His record doesn't match his record. So, you know, I don't worry about it in that respect. But let me ask you guys again a question, because we talked a little bit about, you know, you're actually doing honest debate and all that. But after the debates, where do you guys head to right afterwards?
The men's room.
Right after that.
Right, home.
Spin Alley.
Home?
No, Spin Alley.
What are you talking about? I mean, at these debates?
Yeah, you go to Spin Alley, the place called Spin Alley. Now, don't you think that for
Spin
people
Alley.
watching at home, that's kind of a drag, that you're literally walking to a place called Deception Lane? Like, it's Spin Alley. It's don't you see, that's the issue I'm trying to talk to you guys.
No, I actually believe I had a lot of...
Exactly. No, he's exactly right. He's basically saying after these debates that they do, they go and try to take the words that have been portrayed or have been said on their shows, and they try to take them and mold them into something that maybe something somebody didn't actually say on their show, because they no longer have the ability to rebuttal. When you lose the ability to rebuttal, like for example, when somebody blocks you on Threads or on Twitter, and you can no longer reply to their post, and they continue to reply to your post, that is Spin Alley. That's basically spinning the conversation into the way that favors you, rather than continuing the conversation that person has already lost.
Friends who worked for President Bush. I went to college with
Neither of us was ever in the spin room, actually.
I don't know that I'm the best debater, but I hate debating.
No, I did. I went to Larry King show. They actually believe what they're saying. They want to persuade you. That's what they're trying to do by spinning. But I don't doubt for a minute these people who work for President Bush, who I disagree with and everything, they believe that stuff, John. This is not a lie or deception at all.
I think they believe
in him.
I think they believe.
Just like I believe in my guys.
I think they believe President Bush would do a better job, and I believe the Kerry guys believe President Kerry would do a better job. But what I believe is they're not making honest arguments. So what they're doing is,
exactly,
in their mind, the ends justify the means.
And that last point is one I've outlined on the show before.
Exactly, the ends justify the means. I think that was the end of that clip. But again, you know, going back to what they're trying to accomplish here, and we still see this. We saw this in the debate with Trump and Biden in 2020, where they're just going to say whatever is going to make them popular. Trump was trying to say, I distinctly remember, that anybody with a 401k is going to lose their 401k and it's going to go down the shitter, and that, you know, you're going to regret voting for Joe Biden because your 401k and your future is going to be total shit. Only 20% of people in the United States have a 401k. He was talking to 20% of people, but there's always those people that will believe one day they're going to be rich, or they believe one day they're actually going to make it. So, you know, we have that mentality in the United States where we want to do that. But he fucked up by saying 401k specifically. Trump should have said, Joe Biden's going to ruin your future financially. He's going to ruin the stock market. He should have said stuff like that, because to make it specific about the 401k, you can say only 20% of people have a 401k, and that argument's just completely out of the shit. Now, those arguments might have been great for his talking points for his people. In that debate, also, Joe Biden kind of said a bunch of shit about, getting rid of student loans and then getting everybody first-time homebuyer credit like they did with the Obama administration. He also said a bunch of other shit that, Obama actually pushed himself. And those were all really great talking points. In my opinion, the reason Biden won is because we were trying to get Trump out. That was it. Now, in my opinion, the reason Biden will lose is because we're fucking tired of Biden and nobody wants to vote for him. And other people that are assholes do want to vote for Trump. So, what are you going to do? Vote for either one of the guys that you don't like at all? Like, it's dumb. But the people from their camp will say, excellent talking points, sir, after the debate, and they will say, we did what we did, we pushed what we wanted to push, and it was great. Kind of the same shit here. Talked about this earlier, the CBS News. They suck. They basically spent an hour talking about Trump. It was really annoying. I did not watch that video because I could skim through it. Now, this was the ABC News for tonight. I skimmed through this earlier, too. All they did was talk. All David Muir talked about was the parents being prosecuted. That's accurate. That should happen. Trump, more Trump with Biden. And then the weather, the cops being crazy and killing people. And then Alaska Airlines is still a story for some reason. King Charles, which we rebelled against in the 1700s. We don't care about the monarchy. We shouldn't care about the monarchy. McDonald's and some other, here's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And then they dedicated a full 1/3 of their program, basically. Not 1/3. 1/10 of their program. Actually, you know what? More than 1/10 of their program to this racist piece of shit. Yeah, so that's why I don't watch ABC News as often. Those are my statistics.
Tonight, the unprecedented verdict.
But yeah, I'll end with this with these guys.
Involuntary manslaughter. The jury convicting Jennifer Crumbley on all 4 counts for each of her son's victims. The first of its kind trial for the parent of a
they
school
convicted
mass
her on all
shooter.
4?
How the victims' families are reacting. Also tonight, the U.S. Appeals Court ruling former President Trump is not immune from prosecution in his federal election interference case. Is the next stop the Supreme Court? Just breaking the drama on Capitol Hill, the vote by House Republicans to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas failing on the floor. More than 300 mudslides in Los Angeles, what that dangerous storm has brought. And on the move tonight,
I was talking on
our NBC News exclusive with Iran's ambassador to the UN as the U.S. vows more retaliation against Iran-backed militants in the Middle East. Do you think the risk of war is growing?
Yeah.
And we ask, how would Iran react if there was a direct U.S. attack against it? Prince Harry returning to the U.K. after King Charles revealed his cancer diagnosis. New NTSB photo evidence in that Boeing mid-air emergency were 4 bolts missing from that door plug before it left the factory.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. In a first-of-its-kind case, a parent of a convicted school shooter has been found criminally responsible for their child's deadly actions. A Michigan jury finding Jennifer Crumbley guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 4 of her son's classmates in 2021. The case against her centered on her actions and inactions before her then 15-year-old son Ethan shot 10 students and a teacher at Oxford High School in southeastern Michigan. During the 2-week trial, the prosecution leading the jury through the numerous opportunities it says Jennifer Crumbley had to intervene and prevent the shooting, including warning signs about his mental condition and her.
Kind of messed up how they'll talk about the king getting cancer, but not the 2,700 people in Gaza being killed. Exactly. Again, they are manufacturing consent. So by not publishing the story of 27,000 people in Gaza being killed, they are basically making consent for people to feel sorry for the king, but by omitting this story of 27,000 people dying, they will not purposely platform that story. And if they were to post that story, if they were to talk about that story, they would be manufacturing consent for that story, for the for people feeling sad about that. If you ever notice, now I watch NBC nightly news like pretty much every day, pretty much every night. Up until now, every time they talked about Gaza, they always talked about the Israeli hostages that are being held by Hamas. They would always start with that instead of talking about the 15,000, 17,000, 30,000, not 30,000, 20,000, 25,000, 27,000 people that have been murdered. They won't start with that. They will start with the hostages first, and then once everybody has left the room, basically, they will always talk about that last, if they ever get to it. Which now they're not even
to keep them away from firearms. Maggie Vespa has more on today's verdict and the emotional reaction.
Count one. Tonight, an unprecedented verdict.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Jennifer Crumbley found guilty on 4 counts, one for each student her son killed, leaving the courtroom in handcuffs as the first parent in the U.S.
I think parents should be held responsible
in a mass school
for the
shooting
actions of their
committed by
children.
their child. The jury forewoman speaking out to NBC News.
Until we make some actual fucking
The thing that
changes
really
to gun
hammered it
laws.
home is that she was the last adult with the gun.
After the verdict, family
This should
members
be
of
the
those
bare
4
minimum.
students hugging prosecutors.
The moment you heard the verdict, what went through your mind?
Well, then I can breathe.
Greg Schilling lost his 17-year-old son.
Not only that, so talking about guns, I think there should be insurance companies, which would be a lucrative business, by the way, because there's so many fucking guns in the United States. You should have to register your gun, and not only that, just like a car, register it with an insurance company and have proof of insurance for your gun. And if you kill somebody, guess what? That insurance company has to pay out. Instead of the local, because, okay, so somebody's going to sue her, or they're going to sue the police, or they're going to sue the school for not protecting their sons, right? For not protecting their children. And who's going to pay out? It's going to be the American people that are funding the schools. It's going to be the American people that are funding whatever police department that shot somebody or whatever it is. So rather than that, it should be all the people that own guns, because they would be the one paying into the insurance policies in order to own guns, in order to operate guns. Just like a car, you know. If a car kills somebody, usually it's going to be the insurance company that's going to be paying out. I think it's a pretty good idea.
And Justin.
He loved life and he deserved to live it.
The historic verdict following 7 days of emotional testimony, culminating with Crumbley taking the stand in her own defense.
I wish she would have killed us instead.
Prosecutors suggested she was a negligent mom who ignored mounting red flags about her son's behavior.
She did not give him the help that he wanted.
The defense arguing Crumbley was an engaged parent.
No one could have expected this, including
Mrs. Crumley.
Legal experts say this case may have implications far beyond this courthouse.
Does this open the door for parents to be held accountable for mass shootings, school shootings in the
Imagine
future?
parents being held accountable.
It absolutely does. I believe this will be used as persuasive precedent.
But for Steve St. Juliana, it's simply justice for his 14-year-old daughter, Hannah.
Anything you want to say to the jury?
Just thank you for...
I just want to know where we're at with this and Uvalde, where, like, what was it, like 30 kids died? Where are we at? Where are we at with this precedent?
Using common sense.
And Maggie, Jennifer Crumbley's trial may be over, but her husband's is still to come.
Yeah, Lester, that's right. James Crumley's trial is set for March 5th. He's also charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. And when Jennifer Crumley is sentenced in April, she faces up to 15 years per count. Lester.
Maggie Vespa, thank you. In Washington, a federal appeals court ruled President Trump can stand trial after being accused of unlawfully trying to overturn the 2020 election. This after the court denied Mr. Trump's claim that he is immune from prosecution. Laura Jarrett has details.
Former President Donald Trump today dubbed Citizen Trump by a 3-judge panel in Washington, ruling Mr. Trump is not immune from prosecution. The court saying we cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. The Trump campaign saying he'll appeal the decision. Trump himself bemoaning the ruling, saying a president of the United States must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what has to be done for the good of our country. Special counsel Jack Smith charged Mr. Trump last summer for his efforts to reverse the 2020 election results and stop the peaceful transfer of power.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Mr. Trump's legal team has been trying to get the charges tossed out for months, arguing he should be completely immune from prosecution for any acts he took as president. The court today unpersuaded, saying we cannot accept former President Trump's claim that a president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would neutralize the most fundamental check on executive power, the recognition and implementation of election results. The Trump campaign capitalizing on the court's decision today with a fundraising plea, as the Republican frontrunner frequently uses his legal setbacks as fuel for his latest White House bid.
If you have a president that doesn't have immunity, he's never going to be free to do anything because the opposing party will always indict him as soon as he leaves the White House.
With today's ruling, Mr. Trump's only hope at avoiding trial is for the Supreme Court to find he is immune, which would have major implications in the other legal cases he faces as well.
And Laura joining me here. What are the next steps? What's the timeline ahead?
Well, Lester, the court today said Mr. Trump has just until Monday to appeal this to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, it's unclear if the justices there will even take up the case, but if they choose not to, this trial could happen as early as the summer, Lester.
All right, Laura Jarrett, thank you. Also tonight, that deadly storm slamming the West Coast is on the move. The storm triggering more than 300 mudslides in Los Angeles, damaging homes and burying cars as the city received half a year's worth of rain in just 3 days. 27 million remain under flood watches tonight. There is breaking news at the Capitol. Ryan, what's the latest? Alejandro Mayorkas has failed. Ryan Nobles is at the Capitol. Ryan, what's the latest?
So not only did
Lester, this was a stunning development. The initial vote
against every conservative
secretary. Defeat after the House Speaker.
This dumbass put Marjorie Taylor Greene in front of the in charge of the impeachment for Mayorkas, and his own people voted against it because they hate MTG. Oh God! All right, so yeah, he's not the smartest man, but don't ever forget Mike Johnson's a Christian nationalist. And he's also the Speaker of the House right now. Houthis launch new attacks in the Red Sea. Go on.
Overseas, more attacks today by the Iran-backed Houthi militia on ships in the Red Sea. As we get a closer look at how American forces are defending that vital waterway, Courtney Cubey is the only reporter embedded with...
We're defending it like it was America. Oh, yeah.
The U.S. Navy in the Red Sea.
Tonight, Iranian-backed Houthi militias showing no sign of backing down, attacking 2 more ships in the Red Sea with 6 missiles causing minor damage, according to U.S. officials. After the U.S. and British military struck 36 Houthi sites in Yemen in an effort to deter Houthi attacks on ships. The U.S. Navy tasked with...
Okay, so, like, they said that it did minor damage. So, one thing I want to talk about that is these guys could easily be sinking these ships if they wanted to. My keyboard is dead again. I keep having problems with this damn KVM switch. The Twitter. Trump talks about secrets. Let's see if that pulls up the interview. Damn it. It's just going to be a bunch of dumb shit. Alright, so there was an interview where Trump was talking about Israel joining the United States in killing who was it, Soleimani? So in that he was talking about how God, you know what? I spent too much time looking for that.
After the U.S. and British military struck 36 Houthi sites in Yemen in an effort to deter Houthi attacks on ships. The U.S. Navy tasked with defending against them.
The weapon we're most concerned with is ballistic missiles.
Like the one that hit this ship, the Marlin Luanda, in January.
How would you describe the environment out here right now?
I'd say it's a pretty intense environment out here.
As captain of the USS Mason, Commander Justin Smith has to make a split-second decision to shoot down an incoming missile.
We're talking a matter of seconds here, but my decision space as commander's decision space on whether I'm going to engage that inbound threat, I have about 10 to 15 seconds of decision time.
The ship's spy radar first detects the missile launch hundreds of miles away.
Talking about what missiles or what they want to use.
Sailors quickly put on their fire-resistant gear as they assess what was launched.
ISS says anti-ship ballistic missiles based off speed, altitude, and maneuvering. Inbound Mason.
And the U.S. fires its own missile to hit the incoming Houthi missile. Here in the ship's control room, they practice shooting down missiles over and over. In a rare interview, we spoke with the captain who runs Operation Prosperity Guardian, which defends against Houthi attacks.
I won't beat around the bush. This is a kinetic environment. The Houthis have caused a lot of mayhem out here.
There have now been more than 40 attacks by the Houthi militia since November, and the group is vowing not to back down. Lester?
A fascinating look. All right, thank you, Courtney. And with growing tensions in the Middle East, I sat down with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. In our exclusive interview, I asked him about the risk of war with the United States and about Iran's relationship. Charles was seen today for the first time since his diagnosis became public as his younger son, Prince Harry, arrived from the United States to be with his father. In 60 seconds, a new revelation about that Boeing MAX 9 door plug that blew off a plane in flight. Were bolts installed when they left the factory? What the photos said. Next.
No bolts.
A major development in the investigation into that door plug that blew off an Alaska Airlines flight last month. The NTSB saying it has photographic evidence the plug was not properly bolted when it left the Boeing factory. Here's Tom Costello.
The NTSB says this photo shows the failed Alaska Airlines door plug still on the Boeing production line without at least 3 of the 4 bolts to hold it in place. That door plug blew out 2 months after Alaska received the plane. Today's preliminary NTSB report says workers at the Boeing plant removed the plug after it arrived from Spirit Aerosystems with damaged rivets. But once it was reinstalled, those bolts were missing. Last month, Alaska CEO Ben Minicucci showed us where the door plugs were supposed to be.
These are the missing bolts, potential missing bolts.
Yeah, these are the ones that would be the highest critical bolts that would be missing. These ones right here.
Make no mistake, this was a close call, too close.
On Capitol Hill today, the FAA chief said Boeing quality control had clearly failed.
If you don't have that safety culture, I think it's hard to make safe airplanes.
And the FAA doesn't have enough inspectors inside Boeing to oversee production. It may now use a third party for inspections rather than Boeing.
That's
Okay,
Thursday.
anyway.
Hallie Jackson on why the state is holding both and how voters are caught up in the confusion.
For Nevada
Nevada
Republicans,
caucus.
2
I think
election
this is my last
days,
story.
2 chances
I'm
to
gonna go to
vote,
sleep
but
after
only
this.
1 actually counts. Sound confusing?
Actually, you know what's good? Sorry, I'm trying to remember what the hell I was talking about a minute ago. This was Trump basically giving up secrets earlier. I think this was a few days ago, actually. But yeah, he basically let the cat out of the bag.
Mr. President, I want to get back to Iran. We lost 3 service members last week. May they rest in peace. In Jordan, an enemy drone from Iranian-backed proxies launched that deadly drone strike, killed our heroes. What should be the proper response?
Before you go too far, would have never happened with me. I had Iran in check. Do you know, we hit them very hard for something that they did, and they had to hit back. They feel they have to do that, and I understand that. Do you know they called me to tell me we're going to hit a certain location, but we're not going to hit it. It's going to be outside of the perimeter.
Who called you?
Iran called me. Iran called.
That's what I was trying to make a point of. Sorry. That, you know, like the Houthis' arsenal is actually fairly accurate. People try to discredit the abilities that they have. When they're firing missiles and the missiles hit off to the side of the ship, or they hit within a mile or a couple hundred meters of the ship, that's on purpose. If they wanted to hit the ships directly, they would. If they wanted to sink the U.S. Navy that is currently out there, they would. Now you might say, "Hey, well, it sounds like you're siding on the side of the Houthi, and that you believe that their capabilities are greater than that we're giving them credit for." I'm not siding with anybody, but I am saying that yes, their capabilities are greater than what we give them credit for. We want to believe that they're throwing out these dumb missiles that can't hit their targets, but it's happening on purpose, because that is not an escalation tactic. They are showing strength, basically, by doing that. They're showing that, hey, we could have shut down your ship. We could have sunk you into the bottom of the Red Sea, but we didn't. And our response, the United States response, has been to bomb them, but bomb them sort of indiscriminately and probably of targets that they have approved in order for us to show our strength. So it's two parties showing strength, really for the approval of the people back home. So as long as that goes on, it's going to continue to go on. Now, what Trump is talking about here, he also talks about the inaccuracies of missiles and the purposeful inaccuracy of missiles.
Need to tell me we're going to hit a certain location, but we're not going to hit it. It's going to be outside of the perimeter.
Who called you?
Iran called me. Iran called me, called for me.
And that is exactly what they do in war. In war these days is they say, hey, we're going to bomb your outpost here. And we're going to give you 3 days in advance. So make sure that you get your guys out of there. Unless you want them to die. Or you think that they will survive this bombing. Now, in that point in time, maybe there were some soldiers that already died. And they can just say, hey, you know, these guys died here.
And they let us know, and we had 16 missiles.
Conspiracy theory hat. You know, put your tinfoil hat on.
6 or 7 failed in the air.
Believe it or not.
This was prior to the attack on a fort that we had where they hit back. Do you remember when they sent 18 missiles or 16 missiles?
Twitter has the worst fucking captions I've ever seen in my life.
I failed. They let us know. Don't move. We're going to have to hit you back. Psychologically, we have to do that because we hit them on something. You remember, they sent 16 or 18 missiles, and we knew they weren't going to hit inside the fort. And the media was going, and now I reveal it, the media was going wild because they say it's strange. They're very accurate missiles. How come they all missed?
Exactly.
Nobody was killed, if you remember.
Yes,
with all of those missiles, nobody was killed.
So I know this guy's a lying piece of shit, but here he's actually telling the truth because he's a narcissistic dumbass that always just gives out the secrets when he should not be giving out the secrets.
Now, they had to do it because they have people and they have to show strength. So they aimed the missiles, but they said, please don't attack us. We're not going to hit you. That was respect. We had respect. When we took out Soleimani, you know...
I don't know that it's respect one way or the other, but it's definitely the rules of war right now. Unless you want to go full-on war, then you're just going to show that you can hit somebody if you really wanted to.
No, Israel was supposed to do it with us. 2 days before the takeout, they said, we can't do it. We can't do it. I said, what? We can't do it. Then I had a certain general who's great. I said, so, General, do we do it ourselves? He said, we can, sir. It's up to you. I said, we'll do it. But Israel was a part of it. You know, Bibi was a big part of it. And we had everything planned, everything, because what he has done is terrible. What he did to us was terrible. Killed so many of our soldiers.
Okay, if your soldiers were ISIS, then yeah, he killed a lot of them. But I think what he said there is, and I saw a video on this earlier, is that basically Israel set us up, and they were like, hey, kill Soleimani. And we were like, or Trump was like, yeah, we definitely got to kill him because of whatever he was being told. And so we killed him, and Soleimani was... a quote that I've heard about us killing Soleimani is like, what do you want Iran's response to be? We can't kill Spider-Man or Superman. They don't exist. The United States doesn't have any actual heroes. So what would our response be? And that was somebody saying that from the Iranian standpoint. What's the Spider-Man, or what's the Spider-Man equivalent? Who are they going to kill? Trump? I think half of the United States would celebrate that. Nobody would be sad. I'm sorry. MAGA would be sad about it, probably. But it wouldn't accomplish anything.
Killed so many people. He's the father of the roadside bomb. You know that, right? And
you know that, right?
Soleimani, we can't. It was just incredible.
He just like continues to embellish and make shit up and just rant about dumb shit like he always does. Oh my God, we're gonna have this dumbass for the next 4 years. It's gonna be terrible. Anyway, before I visibly unalive myself, I want to thank you for being here. Again, Threads, follow me there. I'm on the TikTok over there. And, oh, you're still here. Good. What's your oh my God about? I'm going to ask you one last question. Also, follow me or subscribe to me on YouTube. I think I'm posting these videos on YouTube just for historical purposes, I guess. I'm very tired, by the way. Oh, I wanted to know what your OMG was about. Was it about Trump being a dumbass or him being here for the next 4 years? Oh, I'm gonna... No, I would never do that, seriously. There's nothing anybody can say to me now. I was bullied for the first... probably 17 years of my life. So and that's the other thing is like people try to come at me on Threads and I'm like, okay, what fucking weakest come at in my life, bro? Like people have been telling me to unalive myself for the first 17 years of my life. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what do you got? Because it's kind of weak sauce, really. Yeah, I've been through a few things, and I'm old enough at this point where it don't bother me whatsoever. I'll still think about it, but ain't no sweat off my back. People call me that. Yeah, for real. I'm like, okay, and what? Like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, yeah, you want me to diet? Sure, I'll diet. I'm trying. And then they'll feel sorry for me, and then that's about it. Anyway, don't let anybody ever bully you ever again. That's my point. All right, good night. I'm going to sleep. Laters.